You know the exact physical sensation. It starts as a sudden, sharp heat at the base of your neck. You are sitting in a meeting room, or perhaps at a dinner table with people you considered friends, when someone casually drops a remark. It might be a passive-aggressive email where your manager is suddenly copied on a minor issue. It might be a joke that isn't a joke at all, designed to frame you as incompetent, difficult, or untrustworthy, delivered with a rehearsed smile. In that split second, the room goes quiet, and an invisible spotlight snaps onto you. You are expected to laugh it off, or worse, you feel the overwhelming, desperate surge of adrenaline commanding you to defend yourself. Your ego screams at you to explain, to provide context, to frantically correct the record so that everyone in the room knows you are not the villain they are painting you to be. If you speak, your voice shakes and you sound defensive. If you stay silent and look down, you look guilty. The trap is perfectly constructed. And the most dangerous thing you can possibly do in this moment is step into it. We are taught from childhood that truth defends itself, that if you just explain your side clearly and honestly enough, justice will naturally prevail. That is a comforting, polite lie designed to keep prey manageable. In the real world, the one governed by unspoken power dynamics, human nature, and Machiavellian strategy, explaining is losing. The person who just played dirty against you does not care about the truth, and they certainly do not care about fairness. They care strictly about leverage, and specifically, the leverage that your reaction provides. They have engineered a false reality, and they are counting on your emotional, defensive scramble to act as the mortar that holds their fragile bricks together. In this game, if you want to survive and win, you must adopt a colder philosophy. Do not strike the shadow, dismantle the light that casts it. Today, we are going to break down the exact architecture of a dirty player's strategy and how to quietly, surgically collapse it without ever matching their frantic energy. To defeat a covert aggressor, you must first understand the mechanics of their psychological supply. The people who play dirty, the credit stealers, the narrative spinners, the quiet saboteurs, are rarely physically intimidating or overtly aggressive. They operate in the soft tissue of polite society. They thrive in ambiguity and live in the gray areas of plausible deniability. They curate scenarios where their attacks can easily be disguised as simple misunderstandings, deep concerns for your well-being, or harmless humor. They do this because they are fundamentally cowards who know they cannot survive a direct, symmetrical conflict with you. They need an artificial advantage, so they manufacture one. They spend days, sometimes weeks, quietly arranging the pieces on the board before they ever make a move. By the time they finally drop that loaded comment in the group chat or send that strategically timed email, the environment has been thoroughly rigged in their favor. This brings us to the first immutable rule of surviving a Machiavellian attack. You must refuse the arena. In classical military strategy, commanders understand that the terrain dictates the victor. If an enemy challenges you to fight in a swamp they have mapped, and you charge in blindly, simply because your honor was insulted, you will drown in the mud long before you ever get to draw your sword. When a manipulator makes a move against you, they have already chosen the ground. They chose the specific meeting where they know your boss is in a rush and won't tolerate a long debate. They chose the family gathering where they know you are constrained by the presence of an elder you respect. They chose the digital platform where nuance is impossible and witnesses are abundant. They curated the audience, the timing, and the medium to ensure that any normal human reaction from you makes you look unstable, aggressive, or petty. Your instinct is to match their energy. You want to pull up the receipts. You want to lay out the chronological facts. You want to turn to the audience they have so carefully assembled and prove, logically and passionately, that you are being wronged. But look at what actually happens when you do that. By engaging on their stage, you are implicitly validating their right to host the play. You are accepting the premise of their attack. Even if you argue brilliantly, even if you are entirely correct, you are still rolling around in the mud they poured just for you. The audience doesn't remember your brilliant, logical defense. They only remember that you were involved in a messy, chaotic dispute. The manipulator wins simply by forcing you to expend your reputation and energy fighting a phantom on their property. Refusing the arena is not about retreating, and it is certainly not about ignoring the threat or being a pacifist. It is a highly active, lethal form of non-compliance. It means recognizing the architecture of the trap in real time and denying them the one resource they desperately need to close it: your active participation. When the passive-aggressive comment lands, you do not scramble to explain yourself. You do not force a fake, accommodating laugh to smooth over the tension. You simply stop. You look at them. You let the absolute silence stretch for 1, 2, 3 long seconds. You allow the cold awkwardness of their unreciprocated move to hang heavily in the air, transferring the discomfort entirely back onto their shoulders. If a loaded email is sent to provoke a frantic reply, you do not reply in that thread. You step completely outside the medium they chose, refusing to give their trap the oxygen of a response. Think of the devastating psychological impact this refusal has on the aggressor. The dirty player has obsessively rehearsed this moment. They have a script looping in their head. They thought, I will say this, they will get defensive and say that, and then I will look perfectly calm and reasonable. When you refuse to play your assigned role, their entire script crashes. They are left standing on a stage, wearing a costume, speaking lines to an empty chair. It makes them look incredibly obvious and isolated. By withdrawing your emotional labor from their manufactured crisis, you starve the shadow of its light. You preserve your energy, your dignity, and your strategic clarity. You step off the rigged board entirely, forcing them to either abandon the game or make a much clumsier, more desperate move to try and pull you back in. This withdrawal requires iron discipline. Your ego will scream at you to engage, to clear your name in that exact burning moment. You must ruthlessly strangle that urge. You are not giving up your right to clear your name. You are merely delaying your response until you can completely control the variables. You are moving the timeline from their frantic, immediate time frame to your cold, deliberate one. You are stepping back to watch them perform. Because in their arrogance, and in their desperate need to execute their trap, the manipulator is doing something they do not even realize. They think they are exposing your flaws to the room. But in reality, they are hemorrhaging critical, actionable intelligence about themselves. But walking away from their stage is only the first move. To truly neutralize them, you must understand the accidental gift they just handed you. Every time a manipulator strikes, they believe they are wielding a weapon. They do not realize they are actually handing you a blueprint. This brings us to the second rule of Machiavellian defense. Every opening move is a confession. When ordinary people are attacked, they are blinded by the shock of the impact. They focus entirely on the wound, on how unfair the allegation is, on how much it hurts to be misunderstood or misrepresented by someone they thought they could trust. The instinct is to scream, to bleed loudly in front of the village, hoping someone will apply a bandage and punish the offender. But a strategist does not look at the wound. A strategist looks at the weapon, and more importantly, they study the hands holding it. The moment you are attacked, you are being handed a pristine, highly detailed map of your enemy's mind. What exactly are they confessing? By choosing a specific method of attack, the dirty player is publishing their internal psychology, their insecurities, and their tactical limitations for you to read. If a colleague quietly undermines you in private one-on-ones, they are confessing that they fear your raw competence in a public, transparent forum. If a family member triangulates, playing the wounded victim to an aunt or a sibling rather than confronting you directly, they are confessing their total reliance on social pity and their inability to withstand a factual debate. Their opening move shows you exactly who they consider their strongest allies, what they believe your most exploitable blind spots are, and precisely how much risk they are willing to absorb. They are giving you the exact coordinates of their structural weakness. You just have to be cold enough to read the data. Instead of reacting to the insult, you must detach from the emotional sting of the lie and become a clinician observing a very predictable pathogen. Once you have collected this data and mapped their psychology, you will inevitably notice a recurring pattern. This introduces the third rule. Never attack the behavior. Dismantle the foundation. Manipulators, narcissists, and workplace sociopaths are rarely self-sufficient creatures. They do not have the raw, authentic competence, the genuine charisma, or the legitimate authority to dominate a space on their merit. Their power is always borrowed. They are highly leveraged actors operating on social credit, like a vine that requires a sturdy oak tree to climb. Their ability to harm you rests entirely on a single load-bearing wall. Their entire game depends on one specific, unexamined relationship that acts as their shield. Consider the coworker who consistently takes credit for your intellectual property, or subtly edits the narrative in meetings to make you look disorganized and frantic. Or think of the toxic sibling who constantly paints you as the aggressive, ungrateful black sheep of the family at every holiday gathering. In both scenarios, the manipulator is not operating in a vacuum. The coworker relies entirely on the blind trust and inattention of a specifically manager, a director who is simply too busy to check the original timestamps on the deliverables. The toxic sibling relies entirely on the leniency of a parent or a family matriarch who prefers the comforting illusion of the manipulator's lies over the sharp friction of reality. The manipulator's power does not exist in their words. It exists solely in the authority, figure's willingness to believe those words without demanding proof, when you try to fight the manipulator directly. By arguing with the coworker in the hallway, or by yelling at the sibling across the dinner table, you are wasting your ammunition on a decoy. You are fighting the vine and ignoring the tree. You are striking the shadow. Remember the core doctrine of this game. Do not strike the shadow. Dismantle the light that casts it. To neutralize the threat permanently, you must bypass the dirty player entirely and go straight to the load-bearing wall. But you do not go to that authority figure with complaints. You do not approach the manager or the family elder with emotional appeals, tears, or bitter counter-accusations. Doing so simply makes you look like a competing drama creator, an equal participant in a messy feud. Instead, you approach the foundation with cold, hard, unarguable reality. You transition from the role of the wounded prey to the role of a forensic auditor presenting a failing ledger. If the load-bearing wall is your manager, you quietly and professionally provide the raw data. You forward an email chain. You share a version history of a document. Or you reference a time-stamped client request that casually, undeniably contradicts the coworker's false narrative. You do not demand justice. You do not even mention the coworker's malicious intent. You simply offer clarity to ensure the project succeeds. If the load-bearing wall is the family matriarch, you do not argue about who started the historical feud. You calmly introduce an objective fact, a text message, or a documented contradiction that makes it completely impossible for the matriarch to continue believing the false narrative without feeling foolish. Human beings are driven by self-interest, and authority figures are no different. When you present undeniable, unemotional proof that they are being lied to, their self-preservation instincts activate. No manager wants to look incompetent because they backed a fraud. No family elder wants to realize they are being manipulated like a puppet. Confronted with your clinical evidence, they will silently, ruthlessly recalibrate their trust to protect their own ego. When you execute this correctly, the shift in power is terrifyingly quiet. The dirty player does not even know what has happened yet. They are still busy plotting their next move, completely unaware that the structural ground beneath them has just been vaporized. The load-bearing wall cracks. The loans of borrowed social power are called in. You get to sit back and watch as the manipulator's influence suddenly evaporates. Their passive-aggressive jokes suddenly meet dead silence. Their whispers fall on deaf, skeptical ears. They try to pull the levers of manipulation they have always used, only to find the machinery has been unplugged. You transition from feeling a desperate need to defend yourself to feeling a profound, chilling empowerment. You are no longer bleeding in their arena. You are auditing their collapse. But to crack that foundation without looking like the aggressor, you need the one thing a manipulator fears more than anything else. But to crack that foundation without looking like the aggressor, you need the one thing a manipulator fears more than anything else: the absolute death of ambiguity. Manipulators and dark players are creatures of the fog. They thrive in the gray, undocumented spaces between what was explicitly said, what was quietly implied, and what can actually be proven. If you look closely at how a covert aggressor operates, their entire model relies on the concept of plausible deniability. They desperately need the escape hatch of being able to say, "I never said that," or "You are completely misinterpreting my tone," or "You're just being too sensitive, it was only a joke." This is the oldest, most exhausted defense in the modern corporate playbook, and it is equally weaponized in toxic romantic relationships and fractured families. And yet, it works with terrifying consistency. It works because of a deeply uncomfortable truth that you must now face if you ever want to step out of the victim role. This is where the strategy turns inward. The reason they get away with this, the reason they are able to continually revise history and paint you as the villain, is because you have been funding their operation. You are the one handing them the fog. Every time you accept a vague, verbal conversation as a final agreement, every time you let a loaded comment pass without asking for immediate clarification, every time you rely on an unspoken understanding with someone who has already proven they do not respect you, you are handing them the very weapon they use to cut you. Polite society has trained you to smooth over awkwardness. It has taught you that demanding things in writing is aggressive, that asking for precise clarification is rude, and that you should always assume good faith. Manipulators know this. They weaponize your politeness against you. You feel like a helpless victim of their gaslighting, but strategically speaking, your desire to keep the peace is the capital that finances their war. This realization should sting. It means that the anxiety keeping you awake at night, the frustration of constantly feeling misunderstood, is partly of your own making. You have been fighting a war of words with someone who considers truth to be entirely elastic. When you argue with them, trying to desperately remind them of what they promised last Tuesday, or how they insulted you in the hallway yesterday, they simply shift the baseline. They look at you with total, chilling emptiness and deny the premise of reality itself. And because you have no proof, only your memory and your rising, frantic anger, you end up looking erratic. You end up sounding like the crazy one. That is exactly what they want. It is a highly efficient way to exhaust your nervous system while keeping their own hands perfectly clean. You have allowed the game to be played in the soft tissue of undocumented reality. To permanently stop this, you must apply the fourth rule of Machiavellian defense: force them onto the record. You must introduce the lethal trap of specificity. Specificity is kryptonite to a manipulator. It forces them out of the fog and into the harsh, unforgiving light of permanent ink and witnessed reality. Your objective is no longer to convince them to see your side, nor is it to extract a genuine, heartfelt apology. Those are the goals of a wounded ego, not a strategist. Your objective is simply to make them commit to a very specific, undeniable stance that they cannot retreat from later. You are building an invisible cage out of their own words, and you are going to let them lock themselves inside it. Let us observe exactly how this functions in a professional environment. The toxic manager or the sabotaging colleague loves to give contradictory instructions verbally. They love to drop complex, impossible assignments on your desk in the hallway where no one else can hear, setting you up to fail so they can blame you in the quarterly review. Your normal instinct is to complain to a coworker that it is unfair. The strategist's move is to walk calmly back to your desk and immediately send a polite, relentlessly professional email. You write, just to ensure we are completely aligned on the conversation we just had in the hallway. My understanding is that you want me to prioritize this new initiative over the core project, and you are comfortable missing Friday's deadline to make this happen. Please let me know if I have misunderstood your direction. Look at the brutal elegance of that move. You have not been aggressive. You have not been emotional. You have used the polite, collaborative vocabulary of corporate synergy to entirely strip away their deniability. You have forced them onto the board. If they reply and confirm, you now have the impenetrable shield you need when Friday comes, and they try to throw you under the bus in front of the director. If they reply and deny it, hastily retreating back to the original plan to save face, you have successfully neutralized their sabotage before it even began. And if they ignore the email entirely, their silence becomes your documented baseline. You have trapped them in a paradox where any move they make instantly limits their future mobility. This exact same law applies to personal dynamics. When a manipulator in your social circle or family tries to launch a vague accusation or a backhanded insult disguised as concern, you do not launch into a defensive monologue. You do not try to prove your character. You simply ask one highly specific, surgically calm question. What exactly did you mean by that? Or which specific date are you referring to? Or can you give me the precise example of when I did that? Do not raise your voice. Do not break eye contact. Do not offer any filler words. Just demand the data. Manipulators rely entirely on the momentum of broad generalizations and emotional sweeping statements. When you force them to narrow their focus to a specific, verifiable data point, they stumble, they stutter. They try to pivot back to the general feeling, but you do not let them. You hold the line of specificity until the awkwardness of their empty accusation becomes obvious to everyone in the room. You are teaching them a new, terrifying lesson. You are teaching them that interacting with you is no longer a free roll of the dice. You are teaching them that every lie, every twist of the narrative, and every gaslighting attempt will immediately be logged, time-stamped, and preserved. They will hate this. They will accuse you of being rigid, of being too formal, or of acting like a lawyer trying to build a case. Let them complain. Their vocal discomfort is simply the sound of their leverage evaporating. You are pulling them out of the shadows and forcing them to stand in the harsh glare of reality, stripping away the very environment they need to survive. Once you have trapped their words in amber, you are finally ready to hold up the mirror. Once you have trapped their words in amber and stripped away their deniability, you are finally ready to hold up the mirror. This is the moment you transition from merely defending yourself against their tactical strikes to actively neutralizing their entire arsenal. It brings us to the fifth rule of Machiavellian defense: make the technique visible. A dirty technique, by its very nature, relies entirely on the cover of darkness. It operates much like a sleight-of-hand magic trick. The illusion only holds power over the audience as long as the mechanics of the trick remain hidden. The moment a calm observer in the front row simply points to the hidden string or the card tucked inside the sleeve, the magic evaporates instantly. It does not just stop being magical. It suddenly looks embarrassing, clumsy, and small. Your goal is not to scream at the magician. Your goal is simply to point at the string. Imagine the classic whisper campaign in a social circle, or the subtle character assassination that happens in a corporate boardroom. A manipulator is quietly circulating a narrative that you are difficult to work with, or that your recent success was just luck. The standard human reaction is to panic, to track down every individual who heard the rumor, and to desperately try to convince them of your innocence. But doing this validates the premise of the rumor. It shows that you are rattled, which is exactly the aesthetic the dirty player wants you to project. Instead, you apply the principle of the mirror perfectly. You do not argue with the content of the smear. You simply and clinically describe the structure of what is happening. If confronted in a meeting or a group setting where you can feel the silent weight of their manipulation, you speak with absolute, unbothered calm. You might say, "It is fascinating to observe how this specific narrative is being circulated right as we approach the quarterly reviews," or "I have noticed a consistent pattern where my initial frameworks are being reintroduced by others a week later as new ideas." Notice what you are not doing. You are not naming the dirty player directly, which deprives them of the ability to play the victim and claim you are attacking them. You are not displaying any bitterness, which prevents them from framing you as emotional. You are simply acting as a detached narrator, describing the psychological weather of the room. You have turned the lights on. The moment you name the manipulation aloud, you frame reality for all the witnesses present. The technique has been exposed. If the dirty player attempts to continue using it, they are no longer operating in the shadows. They are actively confirming your exact observation in front of an audience. The trap is sprung, and they are the ones caught inside it. The chill that runs down a manipulator's spine when they realize you can see exactly what they are doing, and that you are not afraid to casually point it out, is profound. However, naming the technique is not enough to secure a permanent victory, because if you stop there, you risk making a fatal miscalculation. There is a terrible mistake that highly empathetic or conflict-avoidant people make when they decide not to retaliate emotionally. They confuse the absence of anger with the absence of consequences. If you expose a manipulator but then go right back to collaborating with them, smiling at them in the break room, or doing them favors to keep the peace, they learn a very dangerous lesson. They learn that their aggression against you is a free roll of the dice. They realize they can launch attacks, and even if they fail, they lose nothing. This is how the cycle of abuse and disrespect deepens. You must shatter this dynamic by applying the sixth rule: price every move in invisible currency. Pricing is not retaliation. Retaliation is hot, emotional, messy, and extremely costly to your own reputation. Retaliation looks like revenge, which makes you look just as toxic as them. Pricing, on the other hand, is cold, structural, and asymmetrical. It means that every single time they make a move against you, it must result in a tangible loss of resources on their end. Manipulators are parasites. They rely on the fact that you will continue to provide them with your warmth, your access, your expertise, and your social grace, simply because you are a decent person. You must instantly weaponize that assumption. You do not announce this. You do not send them a dramatic text message about setting boundaries. You simply introduce friction and scarcity into their ecosystem. If a colleague tries to steal credit for your work or throws you under the bus, you do not yell at them. You simply ensure that they never again receive the benefit of your casual brilliance. When they text you for a quick favor, your replies become delayed by hours. And when you do reply, It is with a perfectly polite, sterile refusal. When they need your help to navigate a complex problem, you suddenly lack the bandwidth. If a friend in your social circle plays a passive-aggressive game to lower your status, you do not start a fight. You simply remove your warmth. Your calendar becomes permanently full. Your responses become brief and strictly transactional. The immense utility they use to extract from your presence, your humor, your advice, your willingness to smooth over awkward social situations, is quietly and permanently revoked. This is the invisible toll you are making the act of attacking you economically unviable for them. They are spending visible, desperate energy trying to provoke you, while you are quietly bankrupting them in a currency they did not even realize they relied upon. Because this consequence is delivered not as anger, but as a silent, crushing gravity, they have nothing to push back against. They cannot complain to HR that you are being too polite. They cannot complain to the friend group that you are respectfully busy. They are left to slowly suffocate in the vacuum you just created. You get to watch from a distance with cold detachment as they realize that their little power play cost them the very access they needed to survive. You have priced them out of your orbit, which leaves only the final, most devastating law of human nature. You have priced them out of your orbit, which leaves only the final, most devastating law of human nature. This is the master rule, the doctrine that makes every prior move permanent, and without it, all your strategic boundaries will eventually erode. Rule 7 is simple, brutal, and entirely passive. You must outlive them. There is a fundamental flaw in the architecture of a dark player's psychology that almost no one exploits, simply because almost no one has the discipline to wait for it to fracture. That flaw is their metabolic rate. Operating a sustained campaign of manipulation, deception, and narrative control requires an agonizing, continuous expenditure of energy. Truth is entirely effortless. When you live in reality, you do not have to remember what you said to whom. You do not have to monitor who is speaking to whom. And you do not have to constantly curate your image. But for the covert aggressor, existing is a full-time, high-stress occupation. Think about the sheer, frantic mathematics of being a manipulator. To maintain a false narrative, they have to perfectly isolate different social circles or departments to ensure that contradictory stories do not collide. They have to constantly perform their manufactured persona, monitoring the room for anyone who might be seeing through the cracks. They must flatter the authorities they rely on, actively suppress the targets they envy, and constantly scan the horizon for the next threat to their fragile ego. It is an exhausting, paranoid existence. Their alliances are strictly transactional, meaning the moment they run out of favors to trade or victims to bond over, their loyalties evaporate. Their power is not a solid structure. It is a spinning plate, and the moment they stop running, the plate falls. This is the fatal vulnerability of the dirty player. They are operating on a countdown timer, heavily leveraged against their own nervous system. Your ultimate strategy is not to smash the plate, but simply to sit down, remain structurally intact, and watch them run out of breath. Over a long enough timeline, attrition is the most ruthless executioner in the world. If you observe a chronic plotter over a period of 2 or 3 years, the pattern is always identical. They burn through workplaces, constantly needing a fresh environment where their history is unknown. They burn through friend groups, leaving a trail of dramatic, unexplained fallouts. They move with an anxious, restless energy, forever chasing the high of a new manipulation because the old ones have collapsed under the weight of their own inconsistencies. Your job is to act as the anvil to their hammer. An anvil does not fight back. It simply breaks whatever strikes it by refusing to shatter. When you apply the previous 6 rules, when you refuse their arena, read their opening move as data, introduce facts to their foundation, force them onto the record, expose their technique, and price your access, you are fundamentally altering their environment. You are cutting off the oxygen supply to their fire. You are forcing them to burn their own reserves to keep the game alive. Do not strike the shadow. Dismantle the light that casts it. The light that cast their shadow was the illusion of their power, fueled by your emotional reactions and the blind trust of others. By withdrawing your reaction and introducing hard reality, the bulb burns out. What happens inside you when you reach this stage is profound. For months, or perhaps years, this person has occupied the center of your psychological universe. They have dictated your moods, ruined your evenings, and made you question your own sanity. But as you watch them frantically try to maintain their collapsing narrative, as you observe them stumbling over the specific traps you set and suffocating in the cold vacuum of your boundaries, a strange, beautiful realization washes over you. They shrink. They stop being a terrifying mastermind and suddenly appear exactly as they are, a deeply insecure, exhausted individual playing a pathetic, unwinnable game. You realize that their power was never innate. Their leverage was only ever your participation. The moment you took your pieces off the board, they were left playing alone in an empty room. This is the ultimate immunity. You are no longer navigating the world with the anxious hope that people will simply be kind to you. You understand that the world is filled with predators, opportunists, and players who will happily use you as a stepping stone. But you also know that their tactics are predictable, their power is borrowed, and their endurance is inherently limited. You have evolved from a participant in their drama to a detached observer of their inevitable decline. You do not wish them harm. You simply allow the natural consequences of their own toxic architecture to crush them entirely without your help. You preserve your career, your relationships, your sanity, and your reputation, quietly compounding your own value while they bankrupt theirs. Tomorrow, you will not wake up and launch a counterattack. You will not send a triumphant email or demand a final confrontation. You will do something far colder and much more effective. You will go to work. You will engage with your genuine allies. You will execute your responsibilities with absolute precision, and you will treat the dirty player with the sterile, unbothered politeness you would afford a stranger in a waiting room. You will give them nothing to consume, nothing to react to, and nothing to use. You will let them starve in the silent, invisible prison they built for themselves. The mainstream world wants you to believe that every conflict requires a conversation, that every grievance requires closure, and that forgiveness means allowing people back into your life. That is the philosophy of the prey, the 1% who actually understand the game beneath polite society. Know that true closure is found in the complete and total irrelevance of your enemies. If you are ready to stop playing by the rules designed to keep you vulnerable, if you want to understand the deeper laws of human nature that govern every interaction in your life, The real work begins now. This channel is not for those who want to feel good. It is for those who want to see clearly. Subscribe, observe the board, and remember that in a world addicted to noise, your silence is the deadliest weapon you own.